Welcome to Module 3, Lesson 6, where we are going to be moving from multiplying by 10, 100, and 1000 like we were doing in Lesson 4 and 5, to now multiplying two-digit multiples of 10 by other two-digit multiples of 10. So in this lesson, you'll see something familiar, using the place value chart to multiply, but also be introduced to a strategy that we will use as we start to multiply bigger numbers called the area model. So let's start here with problem 1, where we're going to be looking at 30 times 20. So in order to solve these types of problems where I have two numbers that are multiples of 10, or I can count to those numbers if I'm skip counting by 10, I have got to pull them apart. I want to find some facts. Just like we did in module 4, in lesson 4 and 5, I've got to dissect these numbers so that I can make it easier for myself to multiply. So if we're thinking about this, if I'm thinking about what 30 I could pull out of 30, we were thinking about, can I pull a 10 out? Can I pull a 100 out? Can I pull 1,000 out? Well, all the numbers we're going to be working with today, you're going to be pulling a 10 out of. So if I think about, I take 10 times what number to give me 30, well, there's only one answer to this. I can only multiply one number by 10 to give me 30, and that is 3. Then I would finish off, I'd keep my 20. I wouldn't change that one. Even though I can pull my 20 apart, I'm going to leave that one. But now I'm going to show you an example of how I could break my 20 apart and keep my 30 together. So if I keep my 30 there, and I think about how can I break 20 apart, well, I know I'm going to be multiplying by 10, and 10 times 2 gives me 20. So down here I would have 10 times 2. Now the reason that I did this is because there are 4 different ways to complete this problem. So I'm going to show you all 4 ways. You're only going to have to complete it one way, but I do want you to see the multiple different ways that you could be doing this. So let's look at this first place value chart over here on the left. We're going to be solving for this place value chart the 10 times 2 times 30. Okay. For this, I want to be thinking about what I've already learned, what I've had experience with here. So I'm not going to worry about the 10 right now. I'm not going to multiply by 10. I just want to worry about what I'm putting in my brackets right now. 2 times 30. So the first thing that I've got to start with is I've got to start with 30. Well, I can put 30 in the ones column, but I'm going to have to end up bundling anyway. So if I just think about, I have 0 in the ones column and 3 in the tens, it'll keep me from having to do that extra step. So I'm showing 30, check. Now I need to multiply that by 2. Well, here's one group of 3 that I have there in the tens. I need a second one. So I'm going to add a second group of 3. Check. Okay. Last step here, can't forget about that 10. I've got to multiply by 10. Well, in order to multiply by 10, I've got to think, how many place values am I going to move it over? Well, a key for me, I'm looking at how many zeros does that 10 have? Well, it has 1. I know that if I'm multiplying something by 10, I'm going to be moving it over 1 place value, which means I'm going to end up with that 6 over here in the hundreds place, and nothing here in the tens. So I've got 6, 0, and then I had nothing in the ones to start with, so I'll still have a 0 there. So what I'm showing right now is that 20 times 30 is 600. All right, let's try this another way. We should end up getting the same answer, but let's work it out to try it. Okay, now instead of doing 2 times 30, we are going to do, let's do let's do 10 times 20 times 3. Okay, so I'm just rearranging my numbers a little bit. So I need to show now, again, I'm going to forget about my 10 for just a second. Okay, I want to show 20 times 3. Well, first thing I need to do, I need to show that 20 in my chart. 1, 2. 2 tens equals 20. Now I'm going to multiply by 3, so I need 3 groups of 20. That's 2 groups of 20, 3 groups of 20. Okay, check. Last step, don't forget this, I need to multiply by 10. Just like on this problem we just looked at, I'm going to send it over one place value. Now when I put it in the box, I'm not bundling because I know that I have to have 10 in a bundle, but I do want to show that I'm sending all of it over. So if you want to box it instead of circling it to help you remember, that's completely up to you. We just want to remember that we're sending all of it over because we're multiplying by 10. So now if I look at what I've got left, I'm done with the 10, so I have nothing left in there, nothing left in the ones, and I have 6 in the hundreds. Notice my answers match right now. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And I checked, I multiplied by 10. Okay, let's try another one. I'm going to erase just a little bit so I got a little bit more space for what I'm going to be working on. But keep in mind, right now we're sitting at 600 for our answer. Okay. Change my color again. Do orange. All right. Let's see. Let's do, we did 10 times 2 times 30. We're going to do, 10 times 30 times 2. Now notice, it's the same numbers, but what's going to happen is my picture is going to look a little bit different. So this time, we're going to start, instead of what I just boxed in like we had done before, because that would be the exact same thing as what I did in purple, I want to show 30 times 10. So I'm going to start with my 30, just like we did before. But this time, instead of multiplying by 2 and making 2 groups, I'm going to multiply by 10. So I'm going to send it over first and get my 3 in the hundreds. So I showed my 30. I just multiplied by 10 when I sent it over. I sent it over one place value. But now, instead of doubling it in the tens place, I'm going to double it in the hundreds place. So I'm going to end up with 2 groups in the hundreds place, giving me, I'm done with this, giving me 6, 0, and 0. So notice I just flip-flop my steps. That's the only difference here is I flip-flop my steps. Okay, let's look at this last problem over here. Change my color one last time. Okay, this time we're going to look at 10 times 20 times 3. So again, we're going to change where our brackets go because we're going to move and then multiply. Move and then multiply by 3. So I'm going to start with my 20. I'm going to multiply by 10, so sending it over, which gives me 2 in the hundreds. Now, check, check. Now I'm going to multiply by 3. I'm going to triple my number. So I've got 1 group, 2 groups, and 3 groups. So I've done that, and I end up with 6, 0, and 0. If you notice, no matter what, I end up getting the same answer. It's just how did I go about getting it that makes the difference. All right, we are going to switch problems here. So I'm going to switch what we're looking at. And we are going to take a look now at this problem 40 times 20. Now this is going to be where this area model comes in. So an area model is basically a picture that helps you to figure out what your answer is. And actually, this is one of my favorite methods for multiplication, honestly. So in doing this, we've got to think about how we can represent 40 times 20. So I know that 40 is the same thing as 4 tenths, and that 20 is the same thing as 2 tenths. But what I need to think about now is I'm going to use this box over here to help me with my area model. So I'm going to put one on each side. I'm going to put my 4 tens up here, and I'm going to put my 2 tens over here on the side. Okay? If I have 4 tens on the top, that means I need to split my box into 4 sections from the top. So I'm going to have 1 section, 2 sections, 3 sections, 4 sections. Okay? Now if I think about I have 2 tens over here, well now I need to split this into 2 sections from the side. So I've got 1, 2. Okay? Now again, the reason that I'm doing this is to help me figure out what is the total area, if you're thinking about the inside of your box. What's the total area of your box? So when we think about, if this is 4 tens, then each one of these boxes represents a 10. That's 1 10, 2 tens, 3 tens, 4 tenths. And if we look about the side here, we've got 1 10 and 2 tenths. Okay? Now, in order to multiply, here's what happens, is you're going to end up taking 10 times 10. You kind of trace your fingers from one 10 to the other. And I know that when I get 10 times 10, my answer is 100. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go across that top row. I know that 10 times 10 is 100. Now, if you pick up on the pattern here, each of these boxes, because I'm multiplying 10 times 10 each time, is going to end up being 100. And then what you have to do, very last thing you've got to do here is count up your hundreds. So on the top row I have 4 hundreds, and on the bottom row I have 4 hundreds. So I have 400 plus 400 equals 8 hundreds total. So this tells me that 40 times 20 is 800. Now, the other way to think about this is, if I have 4 times 2, because remember I'm multiplying here, 4 times 2 gives me 8, and I take a 10 times a 10, tens times 10 equals, well, we just showed this in our chart, it equals 100. Well, if I put these together now, look here, I've got 800, which matches what we got when we added all of those up. So it's the same exact principle. It's just breaking it into pieces for it to make it a little bit easier for you to be multiplying. Okay? All right, last but not least, we've got one more problem we're going to do. We're going to combine all those methods that we've done. We're going to combine them together here. So let me switch my screen once more. Okay, so we are looking at this last problem. We're going to represent 50 times 40. All right, we're going to start with our place value chart. So I want to think about how am I going to split 50 and 40 up. Again, you can split either number. It doesn't matter. We proved that. I think I'm going to do 50. So I know that that is going to be 5 times 10. And I'm going to keep my 40. I don't need to change that one. So 5 times 10 times 40. Okay. Again, it doesn't matter what order you do, and you just have to make sure you multiply everything. So I'm going to do, let's see, I'm going to show 40. I don't think it's going to let me write on my chart, so bear with me here. So I'm going to show 40. And I think I'm going to multiply by 10 first. So that means I'm going to send it over. And when I multiply by 10, I'm going to end up, oh, it does let me write in it. Perfect. I'm going to end up with 4 in the hundreds place. So I've shown 40. I've multiplied by 10. Now I've got to multiply by 5. So I've got to make 5 groups of 4. So I've got 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, and 5 groups. Now, I try to keep them in lines. That way I can make sure I'm a little bit more organized. This particular one, if I have more than 10, I'm going to have to bundle. And I definitely have more than 10 here. So I'm going to bundle those discs. So I need 10 in a bundle. This is nice. I've got 10 here. Send them over. 10 here. Send them over. Now, I don't have my other column over here, but I know that the place value to the left of the hundreds is the thousand. So I'm going to have 1, 2 in the thousands, 0 in the hundreds because I've used those, 0 in the tens, and 0 in the ones, which gives me 2,000. Okay. Now, when I do my area model, if I do it correctly, it should give me the exact same answer. So I'm going to think about, I have 5 tens, and I have 4 tens. So on the top, I'm going to change my color so you can see a little bit better. On the top, I'm going to show my 5 tens. And on the side, I'm going to show my 4 tens. Now remember, that's key because that tells me how many sections I'm going to split it into. So I'm going to split this into 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And think to yourself, how many sections am I going to split it from the side? This is my key. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now remember, we're working with 10, so each one of these represents a 10. So I have 4 tens on the side and 5 tens on the top. Now, when I multiply, again, this is just like that last problem. It's always going to be 10 times 10. 10 times 10 is 100. 10 times 10 is 100. 10 times 10 is 100. Okay, you see the pattern. It's going to be 100 for each of these boxes because I'm constantly going to be multiplying 10 times 10. Let me finish getting these written here. Now, the next thing I've got to do is I've got to count up my hundreds. How many hundreds is that? Well, I've got 500 at the top row, plus another 500, plus another 500, plus another 500. I end up with 20 hundreds. And if I'm not sure what 20 hundreds are, well, I had 20 hundreds up here in my chart, remember? And then I had to bundle. Well, I can get 2 bundles of 10 out of that, which means I'm going to send 2 bundles over to the next column, giving me 2 thousands. So if you need to draw that out in a place value chart so that you can make that connection, do it. Okay, the last thing I want us to be thinking about is over here using this unit form, because this is probably the simplest way for you to be thinking about this. Okay, I want to multiply this together. 5 times 4 is 20. Remember, I'm thinking 10 times 10 equals 100. So I have 20 hundredths. Notice it gave me the exact same answer that I got after I did my area model. But I still have to convert. I still have to make sure that I'm showing that this is 2,000. Which, if you can make that connection automatically, that's great. If not, then go back to that place value chart. That's why we learned how to use that place value chart. So all these problems that you just saw are going to be almost identical to the ones that you're going to see on your problem set. Go back, rewatch parts of this video as you're working on your problem set if you need help, because they're going to be set up very similarly. Good luck.